guys, welcome back to Your Mindset, Your Power. How do you build resilience when everything in you wants to quit? Your heart is racing, your body feels heavy, everything in you is saying, stop, I don't want to do this anymore. We've all had those moments, right? And in those moments, quitting can feel like the answer. But is it? Because sometimes the hardest part isn't finding the strength to keep going. No, my friend, it's knowing what that moment is asking from you. And that's exactly what we will be talking about today. So let's start with what resilience really is. When I think of a resilient person, I don't think of someone who has it all figured out. No, I think of someone who doesn't give up, who stays in the hard situation and figures out step by step how to tackle it in the best way they can, even while they're still struggling, even without knowing exactly how it's going to turn out. Not during the moments when everything feels easy, my friend, no, but during those moments when something feels harder than we expected. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, what do I do now? And that reminds me of a time in my own life when I was struggling with exactly that the whole way through. Honestly, I was mostly thinking, what in the world am I doing here? So let me take you back a little bit. Because of life circumstances and some of my own decisions, I ended up getting my degree in broadcasting later in my 20s. I had married very young, and I was in an unhealthy and unhappy relationship. And college had been postponed for years. Until one day, I finally made the decision to register and I start working toward my degree. There was only a little problem. My English was very limited. And I was studying broadcasting news. So, which meant that on top of my broken English, I suddenly had to learn this whole new technical language. And for my younger listeners, you need to understand this. There were no smartphones, no Google, no internet, no translations app. None of those, my friend. Instead, you know what I had? I had a giant, thick dictionary. Yeah, you heard right, my friend. I had a dictionary. That thing became my best friend. I would say my lifesaver. Homework that might take somebody else an hour could take me 3 hours or more because first I had to understand what I was reading. And in class, I sat in the front row, right in front of the professors, trying to read their lips, trying to understand every word. And I asked so many questions. I went home and I studied for hours. There were nights I stayed awake until 4 a.m. studying for a test because it took me so much longer to understand the material. And there were many moments where I thought, what am I doing here? Everybody's ahead of me. This is too hard. I'm exhausted. Maybe I should not continue. And to add to that list, I also had to do oral presentations. Oh, yeah, my friend. That was more like a comedy stunt. Let me tell you. Imagine me standing in front of an auditorium giving a presentation with my broken English. I remember my heart beating in my throat. People would laugh at my accent or at the way I pronounce certain words. It was just a comedy show, my friend. And yes, I was embarrassing. Of course I was. But then I made a decision. I decided to do something different. Before I started my next presentation, in my very broken English, I told everyone, hey guys, listen, you can laugh, it's okay, but please help me here. I need you to correct me because that way you can help me improve. And something shifted. Something changed. People became more patient with me. They still laugh a little bit, but not that much. But they started correcting me. They started helping me. And instead of spending all my energy trying not to be embarrassed, I started using the experience to get better. And guess what? All those long nights studying, asking questions, and getting help from my classmates paid off, my friend. I ended up graduated with the highest achievement in broadcasting. Yep. And believe me, I never would have ever imagined possible in my wildest dreams. Sitting in that classroom and at home with my giant dictionary. No. But when I look back now, the award isn't even the most important part of this story, my friend. Because at that time, I really thought I was just trying to get through college and getting my degree. What I didn't realize is that I was also learning how to get through life. Every difficult class, every embarrassing presentation, every night I wanted to give up, every time I had to ask for help, I was learning how to adapt, how to keep going when I didn't have everything figured out. And those lessons became even more important later when I had to end that marriage, start working, and begin rebuilding my life. I couldn't see any of that while I was sitting in that classroom, my friend. And that's the thing about resilience. Resilience doesn't always announce itself while you're building it. Sometimes it just feels like you're having a really hard time. And this is where things get interesting. Because when something is really uncomfortable, what do we naturally want? Relief, right? Imagine you're about to do something that makes you incredibly nervous. Like maybe you have to walk into an event alone, maybe you started a new job, and every morning you're thinking, I really don't want to go. And then you think, what if I just don't do it? Guess what happens? Almost immediately, you can feel a little relief, right? Like, oh, I don't have to deal with it. But our brains pay attention to that. When avoiding something removes an uncomfortable feeling, our brain learns and learns like, oh, that feels good. And that's important to understand, my friend, because sometimes we confuse relief with an answer, but they are not necessarily the same thing. Now, does that mean you should always push through no matter what? No, sometimes the honest answer is that you need to adjust, recover, or redirect your path. And we will get through that later in this episode. But now the question worth asking yourself first is, do I really want to change direction here? Or do I just want the discomfort to stop? Because those can feel exactly the same in the moment, my friend. And they're not always telling you the same thing. No. And I want to make you aware of something that I think most of us do without even realizing it. We quit tomorrow in advance. Let me explain that. Let's talk about it for a minute because I think this is very interesting. Let's say you're having one of those days. You're exhausted. Maybe you had a terrible night. Everything feels harder than usual. And immediately your mind starts going, there's no way I'm going to be able to go to work tomorrow. I'm definitely not going to work out tomorrow. And sometimes we don't stop at tomorrow. Oh no, that mind travels fast on those moments, my friend. We go to the next week, the next month, sometimes the rest of our lives. I've been there, my friend. And maybe you have as well. You've been having one low moment or one really difficult day, and suddenly you're questioning everything you're going to be able to handle from now on. I like to call that quitting tomorrow today. And here's why I think recognizing this matters. Resilience doesn't make you any promises that tomorrow will be easier. And resilience actually isn't built on the easy days either. And it's built during those hard moments when everything in you wants to quit. And instead of deciding your entire future from that moment, you bring yourself back to what's actually in front of you. So, if today you're exhausted, deal with today. Take care of yourself. Slow down if you need to. Take a long shower, a nap. Take a few slow breaths. Do whatever helps you get through today in the best way you can. You don't have to decide how you're going to feel tomorrow. Resilience isn't promising yourself you never need to stop. Sometimes it's simply refusing to quit in advance. Tomorrow? We'll deal with tomorrow, right? Okay. Now, you must be thinking, so what would I actually do right there in that moment when everything in you wants to quit, right? So I want to give you something real, something practical, some steps I've implemented in my own life in my coaching sessions too, and they work. So let's go to that step one. Notice the negotiation. Before you decide anything, notice what your mind is doing. Just notice that. You know that back and forth. Should I not? Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Maybe I'll do it later. That's negotiating, my friend. So right there, name it. I'm negotiating with myself right now. You don't have to suddenly feel motivated or force yourself to be positive. You just need to notice what's happening instead of getting swept up into it. That's awareness, my friend. Let's go to step number 2. Shrink your horizon. When something feels hard, our mind has a tendency to jump ahead. The whole week, the whole project, the whole relationship, sometimes the rest of our lives, right? So shrink it. Your new horizon is simply the next 5 minutes. Not tomorrow, not the outcome, just the next 5 minutes. And inside those 5 minutes, choose one small action. Open that laptop and reply to that difficult email. Put on your shoes and get out the door. Put your phone down and give your mind a break. Small, doable 5 minutes. Let's go to step number 3. Repeat your anchor. Give yourself one simple sentence you can come back to when your mind starts running ahead again. Mine will sound like, I don't need to have all my life figured out right now. I just need to take the next step. Say it as many times as you need and create your own anchor. Because resilience isn't one dramatic moment where you suddenly become unstoppable, my friend. It's often built through small choices in difficult moments. You have the power to own the next 5 minutes. And before we move on, I want to pause here for a second. Because I know some of you listening are carrying something much heavier than a difficult email, a workout, or a hard week at work. Maybe you're living through grief, maybe a painful loss, a frightening news about your health, or a life that suddenly looks nothing like what you had planned. I'm not comparing those experiences, my friend, not even for a second. But in those seasons, shrinking your horizon can mean something very different. It isn't about productivity. It may simply mean that you don't have to process everything that has happened or everything that could happen all at once. Maybe right now you just need to breathe through the next 5 minutes. Maybe you need to go through what is directly in front of you. And please, lean on someone who loves you while you do it, because resilience was never meant to be something you carry alone. Sometimes it means borrowing someone else's strength when yours is running low. And sometimes time becomes part of that process too. Not because time magically fixes everything, no, my friend, but because life keeps moving, right? And little by little, what feels impossible to carry in this exact moment may begin to feel different. One moment, one breath, one step at a time. Sometime, my friend, the next 5 minutes are just enough. Now, maybe you're sitting with this right now, my friend, thinking, okay, but how do I actually know? How do I know if I should keep showing up? Because the reality is that resilience can be required from us in very different ways, right? Sometimes we're facing something incredibly painful, like we talked about before, and just getting through what's right in front of us is just enough. But other times, we do have a choice in front of us, more choices. Maybe we are going through a temporary rough patch. Maybe we have been pushing hard and wondering, do I keep going? Do I need to adjust? Or is this a time to explore a different direction? And if you have ever been there, you know how hard it can be to have that answer. Let's say you started a small business, something you have dreamed about for years. You have been giving it everything you have, but months have passed and the results are not coming the way you hope. So, what do you do? Keep pushing the exact same way? Adjust your approach? Or maybe explore a different direction? The truth is, you don't know which decision will work out exactly the way you hope, my friend. Nobody handed you a guarantee. And I think this is where sometimes we get stuck. We want certainty first. Tell me this will work out. Tell me I'm making the right choice. Tell me that if I keep going, it will all make sense in the end. But resilience was never about having that guarantee before you move, my friend. It's about trusting yourself enough to move without it. Not, I know exactly how this ends. More like, I don't know what happens next, but I trust myself to handle it when it gets here. Because you don't find your direction and then start moving. No, you start moving and that's how you find your direction. So the next time you're standing there, heart racing, everything in you wanting to quit, don't ask yourself if you are sure. Ask yourself what the next step could look like and take it. That's resilience, my friend. Not certainty, not perfection, just you trusting yourself. Especially when everything in you wants to quit. All right, my friend, before we go, let's bring this all together. Resilient isn't someone who never struggles. It's someone who stays in the hard thing and figure it out one step at a time, even mid-struggle, even without knowing how it ends. Sometimes what feels like quitting is really just relief talking. And sometimes it's genuinely time to adjust, recover, or turn a different way. Learning to tell those apart, that's the work. Don't decide your whole tomorrow from inside tonight's hardest moment. Deal with today. Tomorrow will still be there when it comes. And when everything in you wants to quit, right there in that exact moment, you have a tool now. Notice the negotiation, shrink your horizon to the next 5 minutes, or repeat your anchor. And if what you're carrying is heavier than that, just breathe through the next 5 minutes. Let time be your ally. Lean on someone who loves you. You don't need certainty before you move, my friend. You don't find your direction and then start walking. You start walking, and that's how you find it. My friend, I think about that girl sitting in the front row with her giant dictionary. 3 hours into homework that should have taken one, thinking she was the only one in that room who didn't belong there. She didn't know she was building anything. She just knew she didn't want to quit that night, that day. And that was enough. That one night was enough. And then the next one, and the next one. That's all resilience has ever asked of any of us. Not your whole life figured out in advance, just the next step. So wherever you are right now, my friend, whatever is in it is you're carrying, whatever it is you are standing in front of, wondering if you have it in you to keep going, I want you to know you already have everything you need for the next 5 minutes. That's all today is asking of you. That's all today has ever asked of any of us. Thanks so much for being here today, my dear friend. And as always, if this conversation touched you, share with someone you love. And remember, your mindset is not just what you think. It's where your power begins. I'll talk to you next week. I love you guys.